insanity from the business standpoint if I just came in and said I had something free to point you towards and everybody is going to feel great. They would look at me like, what are you doing? So I think there's a place and a time for all of it. And there are people that I've helped and I knew couldn't pay for it, and that was fine with me. But I think we have such thinking around money, and it's been a journey for me to figure out how to charge and what's reasonable and what is doable. But I just think the idea that, as Amir is saying, that, there's a cost involved. There's a cost involved in our time. And I noticed that when I settled down with the thinking about, what is this worth? The implications of understanding this, it transforms individuals, but it transforms organizations. We know it can transform families. And I just think that, it's an invitation to kind of do some reflecting on your own thoughts about money and earning money. And I know Barbara and I make our living doing this. It's not running a support group. It's actually how we've made our living. And I think it's just a good question that you're asking in terms of how do you price it? What price is there to this? And as you said, Amir, some coaches charge big, and Barbara, some coaches charge big bucks for this. And what does that mean? What does that mean?
One more thing, Katie, what you said is absolutely brilliant. And, when people say, how can you charge for what you do? Well, I charge so I can go do it for free for others. That's the other thing. Money is just a transference, right? It's not, I'm hoarding this money. Some of the wealthiest people are the biggest philanthropists for that reason, because they have enough money they've acquired to give it away. And so in that respect, now, does everyone do that? No, but it seems in our community, Amy is one of them. Amy spends an enormous amount of time giving she has a paid product, but go on her YouTube page and there's hundreds of her videos for free that you don't have to pay a penny for. So it's not a either or. It's how do you want to utilize money to the best interest of yourself and others. And that's how I see it, at least.
Yeah.
Could I add something?
Yeah.
Please do.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So some years ago, quite a few years ago, Joe and I had a clinic and we took it apart, and he went his way and I went my way, except for friendship. That's an old one, and we kept that. But one of the things that I just decided in my private practice is that I was not going to deal with insurance companies. And I wasn't going to diagnose. So that left out insurance companies. But I did decide that I come from way up in northwestern North Dakota during World War II, where on a farm where people bartered and shared things. They just shared machinery, they shared work, and I guess I never thought about that really, but it was probably in my DNA that I thought sharing skills was a good idea. So one day, there was a knock on my door and I wasn't in session, and I answered it, and there's this kind of disheveled guy standing there, and he said, "Are you Mavis?" And I said, "Yep." He said, "Well, the word on the street is you can help people like me." And I thought to myself, word on the street? What's that? But I said, well, come on in, let's got an hour here, let's see what's up. And he was a homeless guy, although he took shelter at night in a shelter across town in Minneapolis. And he'd had a lot of history of drug use and homelessness and so forth. And he wanted me to help him. And, but he didn't have any money. And so I said, well, how about we just start with me helping you, and it's going to come to us how you can pay me. And neither one of us know what that is. And I don't remember ever saying that before, but it just came to me because it felt like common sense. First order of business is this guy wanted some help and had the courage to come up all those floors and ask me. And so we did that. We started. And he was so interested in what I had to teach that there were times when I thought I should be paying him. I mean, all of you guys know what it's like to have somebody that is so hungry to know what they don't know. They're just like a gift when they show up. And he was one of those people. And one day, I got a call from a friend of mine who had been doing some work with. His name was Oscar, and he ran a little kind of nonprofit thing over in the north side of Minneapolis for kids. And somebody had left off a bunch of bikes there that needed repair, but if they could get them repaired, you could give them away to the kids. Well, my client happened to, one in his history was that he used to work at a bike shop. So when he showed up the next time, I asked him if he would help my friend Oscar. And if he could help my friend Oscar, that's how he could pay me. So he went to see Oscar and he fixed all these bikes and didn't charge them anything. Somebody else bought the parts and so forth, and he fixed all these bikes. And while he was there, another guy I knew, who was a doctor, but he owned several bike shops. He met this guy and he gave him a job. Now, who could ever figure that out? None of that was in part of my plan. My only plan was first order of business, help this guy, and it was going to come to us in some way or other that we could share talents and everybody could win. I am not smart enough to figure all that out. Does that make sense? That's just, it's just like when something feels like the right thing to do, everything else just follows. It doesn't take me figuring anything out. And so the history of my private practice has been more or less that there are people that, just like Amir, can pay me my usual fee. But that in turn helps people that can't come up with that, but they can come up with their own skills. And somehow it all works out. And I really agree with Barbara that there are a lot of times when people have to have some kind of skin in the game in order to take part in what they're asking of us. But there are so many ways to have that come about, though don't necessarily involve money. But it all pays off. And again, I'm not smart enough to figure out how all of that works, but I know it does if I just stick to, okay, what's the right thing to do here? Everybody wins. Okay, I'm done.
I know one of the things that happened for me is when I started coaching, I decided that I wasn't going to charge anybody anything, but it doesn't mean people haven't paid me. Yeah, I've had people give money. I've had people exchange time, So to me, it's the idea that we have to invest something initially in order to get something out of it is kind of that's another self-limiting belief that people have. And getting through that belief will help them open up even more to what we're trying to share with them. And just say maybe something like, we'll work that on the back end, just like we were just talking about. We'll figure something out, when the time comes, that wisdom will tell us, how to go forward with it. You know, so charge or don't charge, but just do what feels right to you. And bartering and trading is one of the oldest ways of of taking care of things like that. You know, and that's a beautiful story with the homeless man that could fix all those bikes for all the kids. I mean, that's what the world needs, because that's love. And sometimes money is love too. Money is energy, just like everything else. And it is a flow, like Amir said. It's not about, you know, getting the money and holding on to it. The money comes and goes. It's a flow. And when we get in the flow, just like when we get in the flow of anything else, it just takes care of itself.
Yep.
If anyone wants to flow money towards my account, I'll send out my email. I'm just saying, you don't have to, but just.
Be sure to post your bank account number online.
Your routing
Amir.
number and all that, right?
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Barbara.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate that.
No problem.
No, but I love, honestly, what Maeve, everyone, this is, man, this is so cool, isn't it? What I'm so glad we did this. This is such an incredible, this is probably one of the best events I've been to in a long time, honestly. And I've been getting private messages saying, wow, just wow, and like not even any more than that. So I want to thank all the people that did this. You know, Amy worked hard, Barbara, Joe, all you guys, everyone that did this. A big kudos to everyone that Sandra. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart, because I think this has been extremely valuable, not only for the people that are on here, but even the people that are. I've been hit. I'm guilty by association just by listening, right? Been hit with the wisdom.
Yeah, me too.
It's been a labor of love and a unbelievable reward just to see how this is impacting everybody. It's just, when I met Sid Banks many years ago and started being mentored by him, he said, well, someday, Joe, you'll write books about this, and you'll teach in universities, and you'll travel all over the world. And I was like a 32-year-old kid at the time, and I'm really insecure about doing any of those things. And this happened, and so many other things have happened serendipitously throughout my career. It's just been, I just feel so blessed and so lucky, and it's just the desire to help people. I think that, you know, I started when I was 16. I was going to be a Catholic priest at one time, believe it or not. And I lived in Guatemala as an exchange student, and I saw the priests and nuns and the good work they were doing. And I thought, oh, I'm going to help people. That's what I want to do. Not go into my father's business. I'm going to help people. And from there, everything just kind of, and I got into psychology, and I thought, well, this isn't really helping people. Wait a minute, something's missing here. And that put me, kind of, my radar got on for finding a way to actually help people. And my dear buddy, Keith Lovins, is who hoodwinked me into going to Florida to hear Sid Banks the first time. And the bait was meeting this lovely woman named Michael, who I'm married to now for almost 40 years. That's what got me there. So I fell in love with Michael the same day I met Sydney Banks. It was a bonus. And, you know, back to the 3 principles as a business question, or money and all that. You know, I've been times when I've almost gone bankrupt teaching the principles, and times when I've made a lot of money doing this. And, but knowing where your feelings are coming from has helped me to keep balance throughout those highs and lows, the ups and downs of just making a living and having enough to pay the rent, et cetera. And, you know, if you know your true north, you know your direction, and you keep following that, and you're true to that, it all seems to take care of itself in this unseen hand way. that seems to be moving things around. And that takes, for a professional PhD in worry, that takes a lot of worry off your mind when you don't have to think about it. So that's my 2 cents. No pun intended.
This community, you know, I think you guys might have talked about this before I came back, but I've never, ever, and I've heard so many people say this, never, ever seen any kind of community that is as generous with time and, I mean, just time. like you could call anyone in the Three Principles community at any point and they would talk with you. And it's always been that way. And I remember going to the very first conference I ever went to after going to academic conferences and through graduate school and stuff. And at those, there was such a clear hierarchy and you just didn't talk to certain people and everybody knew where they were in the pecking order. And it just blew my mind to go to a Three Principles conference and there was no hierarchy at all. In fact, the people who had been around the longest were seeking out the brand new people to intermingle with them, which is so obvious to us now. It's kind of what we're doing here, you know, but it's like, it just, I remember now, like, oh my gosh, just 10 years ago, that was mind blowing that you never saw that anywhere. And I just think it's amazing. That's how this is spreading so much. That's even just what we're doing here. I mean, it's blowing my mind when I look down at the participants and see 100 people sitting here at times having this conversation. And it's just by those little domino effects, just by someone who wants to do something because they've been touched to just share it with someone else who shares it with someone else. And it's so cool to see that really, really play out and how far it reaches.
Can I tell you a Sid story?
Yeah, please.
This was years ago. Sid came to Minnesota quite a lot because Joe invited him quite a lot. So, and one day there were a bunch of us that just went out to lunch and I was sitting by Sid and he had heard apparently that I had been doing some work with teenagers in prison. And he said, tell me stories. Sid loved stories. And so I thought, okay, stories, what? And so I just told him a few of the things that had happened with the kids. And I must have, there must have been a tone of kind of, yeah, well, big deal in the way I was telling it. I must not have, I don't know, it was just, there must not have been very much wonder in it or something. And he reached over and he put his hand on my arm and he said, don't ever get used to the miracles, dearie. And I thought, oh, I had gotten, I mean, he sensed it. I had seen it as just, yeah, well, okay, that's great. This kid changed his mind and this kid quit being a jerk and this, you know, and it's like, I hadn't respected it enough. I hadn't, I had mistaken my tendency not to ever take credit for something that wasn't mine. I thought I couldn't talk about it in a way that ever seemed like I was bragging. So what happened from that is that it was just like I'd lost sight of being part of a miracle. And I never forgot that. It was clumsy to change my mind about thinking it was bragging, because I'm a Nordic and you're not supposed to do that. So, but I'll never forget it, because I don't know how he knew that I was doing that. But he could feel it, I guess. So what I like about this conference is people aren't forgetting about getting used to the miracles. It's like, no. Just like looking at a baby and thinking, oh, ordinary baby. Who does that?
I really saw that yesterday with the very first panel we had of people from the different treatment centers sharing, and you could see the people who, like Gulf Breeze people, they knew their Gulf Breeze stories already, they knew those people, but when they heard people from other treatment centers sharing, you could see them, and I talked to Danielle about it, and it was like, oh, that's right, you know, this is a miracle, and it doesn't just happen here, it happens all over the place.
When I first started sharing this and just, you know, having these miracles happening every day, I used to always say, I get goosebumps in parts of my body that I didn't even know you could get goosebumps. And like literally between my fingers, I would feel goosebumps coming out. Or, you know, my goosebumps had goosebumps. It was just extraordinary, you know. And no, I never want to get used to that. Mavis, I love that story of Sid. I tell it all the time. Don't get jaded to the miracles, because it really is. And who knew? I mean, in the field of psychotherapy, who knew that that was even possible, you know? And yet now I live it every day.
I just want to pipe in here about the miracle of the thought in the beginning when you guys first announced this conference, and I put up my money and I bought my plane ticket, and Amir said he was going to be on the panel. I was like, wow, Amir, we finally get to meet, and Catherine and all these different people. And what a disappointment. We've all been disappointed. But I got to say, I would be worried if I was in person with all of you people in the same room, that the blood from my heart bursting through my chest wall would be all over the faces. Like, I can't even imagine the intensity of being together, because it's so freaking powerful with little Zoom squares. I can't even get over it. It's amazing to me.
And I just apologize for getting cut off when I was about to ask a question. I've had a bit of an afternoon. I got locked out of my house. So I went to watch this at my friend's house. And I was just about that much of the juice in my battery. And the question was asked, and then I got cut off. So I just want to apologize.
No need, Jean. I'm glad you're here. Good to see you. What was your
You want to
question?
ask it again?
Now.
Well, it wasn't a question. I'll tell you what it was. It was a big thank you to people. Okay, so I'm a journalist, and I had the privilege a few weeks ago of interviewing Jacqueline Hollows. She's there. And the Fab Five. And I just want to say that, you know, I interview people every day. And I've interviewed some incredible people in my career. But they just blew my socks off. It was like, I heard these stories, and I suppose to kind of paraphrase Sid, I heard these stories, which was really exciting for me, both as somebody who's been introduced to the three principles, also as a journalist, also as somebody who's like, my father was an alcoholic, and I accidentally got in a relationship with a heroin addict. And what I was seeing was that these guys have a story. You know, so much news, so much in the newspapers now, so much news is throwaway, and it's the thing that you wrap your fish and chips up in. But these guys' stories, to me, they weren't just a story that you throw away. They're stories that you can tell again and again and again. They're like magic, and they just invigorate people. But I really wanted to say about Jacqueline Hollows, because I'd heard 5 I just thought, like the lady just said now, Wendy, that, you know, your heart might burst. And I'd had 5 lengthy interviews with these guys that went on 2 hours each. And I was thinking I'd just about heard everything that filled me up and made me inspired and made me want to write and talk about all kinds of issues like Black Lives Matters and just the wonder of what had happened to these guys. And then I heard Jacqueline Hollow's story, and you've only heard part of it. It sent shivers down my spine. And I just thought, oh my God, no wonder they relate with her, because her tale is so fabulous. And I just wanted to really to pass that on to all of you, because as somebody who's had people who've been addicted to things in my life, and I was always looking for the shiny underneath, and in doing so, I lost some of my own shiny. And Jacqueline has this like incredible shiny that brings up the shiny in all these guys. And I just wanted to say that, because I just think that stories can just be stories, but stories can also be, they can rebirth something and be a beginning and a connection that isn't just like, oh, I've got a terrible tale, just hear my tale, it's just awful. It's like the tales that some people tell awaken so many people. And I'm a journalist, I've heard so many tales, but those stories totally woke me up. So I just want to high five you guys and just say that, you know, it's just so incredible what you're doing. So I'm sending lots of love your way, okay?
Straight back at you, Jean. Yeah, it was just amazing for you to be interested in us. That just sort of blew us away on that level. And then meeting you and talking to you has just been amazing. And it's all just part of my journey. It was just unbelievable to me. So thank you. A lot of thanks to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Well, Jean just spread it out to the world.
Can I just say something? So, you know, the other side of that is that as we just go about and live our normal lives, I went out to do some shopping and I ran into 3 or 4 people and they asked me what I'm doing. So I'm just lit up about this conference. So I have about 3 or 4 people who now want to hear more about this conference that I'll be getting together with, you know, after we're done here. So as we go about and live our lives and share this beautiful feeling, you know, people do want to know more. And I think that's what this community is all about. And it's so good to be here.
And by the way, Catherine, and all of you, this has all been videotaped, and we're going to make it available for sale for people who weren't able to be here in person. You know, so nobody has to miss this. You know, of course, it's different when you're there and you can ask questions and it's alive, but everybody can still, every bit of this has been recorded and it will be available. Now, everybody who signed up for this will get a free recording, you know, along with your fee or your scholarship for attending this. But have I spoken out of turn, Amy? Is that everything okay with that?
Sorry, I'm muted. Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah.
So Amy,